What's your process? Do you write fast or slow? Do you outline or do you create as you go? That's what we're talking about today on Storyboard Shorts. There tends to be two types of writers. There's the seat of the pants writer, and this person sits down and creates off the top of their head and just writes stories and creates, and they just develop as they go. And then there's the outliners who like to plan it out. They sit down and they think, okay, how's the story going to go? And they make an outline, a very detailed outline before they start writing anything. Only when their outline is the way they like it do they sit down at the computer and then follow that outline and type their story. Some outliners are like really intense. They go scene by scene. They figure out the whole book. Some outliners do a little bit less. And that's where you get the hybrid type of a writer. These writers outline just a little bit and then they see to the pants the rest. And that's me. I'm a hybrid writer. My process goes a little bit like this. I like to figure out my 3-act structure. Here's a 3-act structure that has various points. And I like to figure out what's going to happen at each of these major points. And of course I need to know my ending going in because I need to have something to write towards. I've found that if I just sit down and see to the pants it, I get lost. And that's kind of what happened with my first novel that took me 3 years to finish. I didn't really know where I was going with it. I hadn't thought it through. And just to sit down and create, I would get lost. I'd be writing pages and pages of stuff that had nothing to do with anything. And then I had to cut it. And I didn't like cutting those kinds of words. So over the years, I've developed my process. And so what I'll do is I'll sit down and I'll think about my 3-act structure and fill out this little worksheet, which you can download on my website. I write one sentence for each of these, and that will give me a very rough outline to start from. A lot of times I write more complicated stories and I need more than just this one sheet. At times like those, I'll expand it and I'll add a lot of in-between space that I can fill in with scenes. I will then write these scenes on 3x5 cards and storyboard my story. I don't have a big house, so I don't have a wall dedicated to this, unfortunately. So when I do this, I have to take over the living room floor and I cover it with my cards. This allows me to see my story as a whole. I like to use different colored cards for different colored points of view. This also helps me see at a glance where my point of views are, if I'm missing one character or if I'm using one more than another. Point of view. This is the character who is telling the story in a particular chapter or scene. Once I have my storyboard all worked out, I stack these cards up, sit them next to my desk, and I'm ready to write. This brings me to another process that authors are divided on: how to write the book. I'm a fast first draft girl. I learned this the hard way. As I told you before, it took me about 3 years to write that first book, and it was actually National Novel Writing Month that taught me this lesson. National Novel Writing Month is this website, nanowrimo.org, and everybody tries to write 50,000 words in the month of November. And I thought, I could try that. That might be neat to try to just knock out a book really fast. And I did it, and it was wonderful. And it changed everything about the way I wrote. And so I became a fast first draft girl. Now, not all writers do this. I have a friend, Bill Myers, and he told me about his writing process. He sits down and he writes chapter 1. Day 2, he sits down and he reads and edits over chapter 1 and writes chapter 2. Day 3, he rereads chapter 1, reads and edits chapter 2, and writes chapter 3. Next day, he starts with chapter 2, and he's always working on 3 chapters, slowly going through the book, bump, 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 until he gets to the end. And he's the seat of the pants writer. He creates it as he goes. That's mind-boggling to me. I don't know how he does it. My point is, there's no one right way to do any of this. Give different ideas a try, see what works for you, and if something doesn't work, leave it. Writing novels is an art form, and no two people do it exactly the same way. So gather tools, try them, and if they don't work, throw them out of your toolbox. You don't need them. Do what works for you.